Oh, hello there. Fascinated by the frolics and fun of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, and in particular Act 2, Scene 5. Let's study and find out more. Stay tuned, Schofield, on Shakespeare! Just a reminder with these series of videos that you need to have read the scene in detail before watching the video. So if you haven't done that, go and do that now.
Time for my summary of Act 2, Scene 5. Maria comes good on her promises from Act 2, Scene 3. Sir Toby, Sir Andrew and a new character, Fabian, not the fool, gather in great excitement, ready to watch the duping of Malvolio. Fabian has a particular grudge against the sanctimonious steward. He got him in trouble with Olivia for being involved in a bear-baiting exhibition within the local area. Stage manager and director Maria shoves the three panthers into a shrub-like tree and drops the forged love letter nearby on the grounds. Crucially, before even reading the letter, Malvolio shows his own hopes and pretensions. He dreams of being Count Malvolio, of being the one who breezily issues orders, of having the authority to be able to give Sir Toby a good telling off about his drinking. Thus, when he finds the letter, it is no surprise that he falls for it, hook, line and sinker. The letter is clever, devilishly clever. The language is laughably and unrealistically ornate, appealing to Malvolio's own deluded sense of self-grandeur, whilst there are clues which need to be decoded, e.g. MOAI to sway the forlorn one's life, and that she can command where she adores. Once cracked, these clues imply that the letter has been written by Olivia and is intended for the man she secretly loves, Malvolio. The letter includes specific instructions aimed at extending the amusement value and virtually guaranteeing Malvolio's future humiliation. He must be rude and abrupt, smile permanently in Olivia's presence, and wear cross-gartered yellow stockings. It doesn't occur to Malvolio that the letter could be a forgery or could be aimed for anyone other than his good self. He is delighted, as are the onlookers, with Sir Toby hinting that he could marry Maria for delivering him such exquisite amusements. Time for you to answer some questions, dear viewers and subscribers. The more you independently write and think about these three questions, the better. This video will resume in 5 seconds' time, so press pause now to pen your responses. Question 1. This scene is generally thought to be one of Shakespeare's funniest. Pick 3 moments, quotations, explain in detail why you would particularly enjoy seeing these on stage. Where to start? What a delicious question. Okay, I'm sorry, it is childish, but I couldn't resist it. But I can give 3 reasons as to why this makes for a very funny moment on stage. The first is the crude one. A contemporary audience would have known, and many would have used, the word cut as slang to mean vagina. In Frances Dolan's helpful exploration of the play, Twelfth Night, Language and Writing, she explains that cut can be an excision or omission of a part, and so by extension, a castrated man, and so a dupe or fool or a woman, following the logic by which women are defined by what they don't have, a penis. This explains Sir Toby's use of the word in Act 2, Scene 3, when he says that if Sir Andrew doesn't eventually marry Olivia, the former can call me cut, thus characteristically reaffirming his sense of his own virility and perhaps misogyny. But returning to this scene, Given cut is so similar to its modern equivalents, just add an N, modern audiences can still access the same cheap laugh, particularly as peas is still used to mean peeing or urinating. However, this moment is all the funnier because it is not being pre-planned by Mariah. Malvolio himself, apparently innocently, although of course this will depend on the production, has happened to identify 3 particularly distinctive handwritten letters that, when put together, amount to the slang word for vagina. It is thus an unexpected bonus, an extra gem for the giggling audience and characters on stage who understand the joke. Finally, the joke works so well because it is uttered by the one character in the play who seems to pride himself the most on his straight-laced restraints and morality. Remember his pompous upbraiding in Act 2, Scene 3, calling for respect of place, persons and time? Yet here he is, unwittingly or otherwise, spelling the words of female genitalia in public and alluding to private toilet business. We would expect the like from Sir Toby, and perhaps groan rather than laugh with his niece at his crudity. But coming from such an unexpected source, the moment is delicious. I don't know whether any of you have come across this salacious, rather unpleasant book, Filthy Shakespeare by Pauline Kiernan. This purports to illuminating Shakespeare's filthiest sexual puns from a number of his plays, including the extract we have been discussing here from Twelfth Night. My big issue with the translating is that the whole point of a pun is that it has more than one meaning, so just including the sexual meaning results in a far cruder experience than even admittedly dirty Shakespeare would ever have contemplated. Of course, this section of the text doesn't really need translating. It's pretty bloody obvious, much more so, say, than some of the early sexualised banter in Romeo and Juliet. But have I missed something with the translation circled on screen now? Yes, Malvolio may have just without realising it spelt out the slang word for vagina. But surely his concluding reference to her hands is just his confident reiteration that the handwriting is Olivia's. If we have to be crude here, the previous sentence referred to peeing, urinating, nothing to do with masturbating. Still, this is without question a very funny moment on stage, as is my second choice, the initial poetry within Mariah's letter. Something about the language here is hilarious. Let me try to pinpoint why. Firstly, the personification of lips and silence creates a disproportionate sense of drama, which is spotlighted through unusually short lines. Generally, Shakespearean poetry uses iambic pentameter, which consists of 10 syllables to a line, in which every other syllable is stressed. However, here, the command for lips not to move is within a line of just 4 words, each of 1 syllable, which nakedly exposes the over-the-top melodramatic requirement for discretion. Similarly, the image of silence somehow goring or causing a dramatic horn-like wound to Olivia's heart is so incongruous that it is laughable, particularly given the addition of the simile saying that it is like a Lucrece knife. Lucrece was a famously beautiful and modest wife in ancient Rome who was raped and subsequently stabbed herself to death. Thus, the image of the knife in Mariah's forged poetry has connotations of extraordinary tragedy and brutality. To somehow link this to repressed feelings for a pumped-up, preening and overwhelmingly ordinary and domestic steward creates humour through the power of contrast. Here's Rembrandt's 1666 painting entitled Lucretia, showing the knife which is referred to in the quotation. Her honourable suicide and self-sacrifice transformed her into a mythical heroine. Returning to the quotation on screen, isn't it also the relative juxtaposition of the reference to Lucrece and the utterly mundane abbreviated code name of MOAI, which emphasises just how over the top the imagery is? signposting without any shadow of the doubt that Mariah is taking the pee, to paraphrase my previous quotation. And here's my third choice, for the prose in the letter is pretty good too. Can I highlight two different but equally hilarious verbs? Firstly, revolve. What exactly does this mean? The Oxford English Dictionary suggests that this verb was historically used to mean to turn, bring or roll back into a place or state or restore, whereas modern readers will think of spinning or rotating around. Either way, given that later on Malvolio shows that he is prepared to do exactly what the letter tells him to do, however ridiculous, it would not be out of place to have Malvolio spinning around dutifully and earnestly at this very point, thus causing more amusement for the audience. This happens in the 1970 TV production directed by John Sichel.
If this fall into thy hand, revolve. In my stars I am above thee, but be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them.
Meanwhile, the previous meaning of revolve, i.e. restoring, feeds in brilliantly to Malvolio's sense of entitlement. He somehow feels as though it would be perfectly justifiable for him to be airlifted into the position of Olivia's husband. Within his skewed mindset, this would somehow be restoring what he deserves, even though, of course, as far as we know, he has always been at the level of a mere steward. I love the inappropriately virile feel to the past participle thrust. Again, something which feels completely inappropriate when applied to someone as domestic, pernickety and fussy as Malvolio. Thrust is defined as being pushed suddenly and strongly, and thus there are connotations of the male sexual organ in action. Whereas we could well imagine Sir Toby thrusting, or at least suggesting to Sir Andrew that he needs to be thrusting, the same image seems incongruous and unlikely when applied to Malvolio. What is so clever about the lines on screen now is that they sound like a modern motivational speech. Indeed, this is exactly how they were used within the 2006 movie She's the Man, loosely based on the play. We are in the middle of a soccer match and Duke Orsino's character is explaining that the freshly unveiled female character Viola can make an extraordinary mark within this match.
Be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. I think the best chance for us to be great here today is to have you play.
Thus, the directors of She's the Man can legitimately say that they have not just based their film on Shakespeare's plot, actually a rather problematic claim given that Shakespeare himself very rarely wrote his own plots, but used his language. But playing the line straight loses all the humour in Shakespeare's original, in spite of the use of polyptoton, which helps create an aspirational echoing effect. We cannot for a second join Malvolio as he begins to excitedly hope. The presence and continuous banter from the three men hidden in the box tree makes this impossible. Thus, we cannot help but laugh at the clever way Mariah has managed to deal with the problem of there being such a disparity between the social statuses of Malvolio and Olivia. The idea is that it is the former's fate to be elevated so dramatically without doing anything, which contrasts, of course, with the likes of Mariah and Viola at the end of the play. Both end up in socially advantageous marriages, but both have actually earned them through their actions. Time for question 2. Karen Grief writes, role-playing, deceptions, disguises and comic manipulations provide the fabric of the entire action. Compare and contrast the presentation of deceit in this scene with examples from earlier in the play. Let's just briefly sum up some of the deceit we have seen in previous scenes. The most obvious and long-lasting is the Deceit currently being played by Viola as Cesario. She is quite right when in Act 3, Scene 1 she says, "I am not what I am." Nonetheless, in spite of these occasional enigmatic hints, there are no signs at this stage in the play that Orsino and Olivia or anyone else realise that he is actually a she. Another deceit being practised on others is Sir Toby ruthlessly using Sir Andrew for his money and ability to furnish him permanently with booze. But this play is clearly also about self-deceit. Orsino is surely kidding himself when he proclaims his hopeless love for Olivia. He may be hopelessly in love, but it is clearly with himself, rather than a woman, whom in the course of the play he meets on stage for the first time in Act 5, Scene 1. Meanwhile, if we take Olivia's initial decision to mourn her brother for 7 years at face value, rather than as a desperate ruse to stave off unwanted attention from Orsino, this is surely another example of self-deceit. Such excessive mourning and closeting implies that she is deliberately deluding herself about what is proportionate and important for her own existence. What are the effects of these deceptions? Well, on one level, the effect of these deceptions is to provide amusement for the all-knowing audience. It's funny that Orsino praises Cesario's feminine appearance as increasing his chances with Olivia. It's funny to see the same man wallowing so persistently and so self-indulgently about his, inverted commas, love. And here, in Act 2, Scene 5, it's also funny to see such a prudish, unlikable man as Malvolio being tricked. At this stage of the plot, at least, we feel the same as Sir Toby, Maria, Fabian and co. Malvolio deserves to be deceived for being such an inappropriately pompous ass, a killjoy, a preposterously presumptuous peacock. But clearly the way Sir Toby and Maria develop the deception of Malvolio later in the play, they have him confined and imprisoned and accused of madness, makes for more uncomfortable viewing. And even at this point in the play, there are glimpses that the effects of deceit and deception can be darker, with potentially more serious consequences. In Act 2, Scene 4, we have seen Viola apparently prophesying her own slow decay and death. The disguise that she has adopted has left her completely unable to present herself openly as an option for the man she inexplicably loves. In Act 2, Scene 3, Sir Andrew has hinted that he may be approaching serious financial difficulties, talking of a foul way out. Sir Toby, continuing to deceive and take full advantage of this simple fool, could thus have grave consequences a million miles away from the apparent fun of copious drinking and japing. Nonetheless, Act 2, Scene 5 ends with a feeling of light-hearted anticipation. Maria urges Sir Toby and co. to watch the transformed Malvolio during his next meeting with Olivia. Surely there can't be any lasting harm done laughing at a pompous ass dressed up in bright socks, under the illusion that his mistress wants him badly.
Oh, hello there. This has been a Schofield on Shakespeare production, exploring Act 2, Scene 5 of Twelfth Night. Many thanks for watching.